Well, hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of The Sweet Spot, your official IAPF podcast. I'm Josh Kearns, and we're joined today by good friend and sponsor Matt Gibson from PlaySight. If you've not experienced PlaySight, let me tell you, we've all seen camera systems now, and there's a QR code, and you can see your replay and all of that. But, Matt, I got to tell you, first time I got to interact with PlaySight up at the Armory up in Bellingham, Washington, north of here in Seattle, I was blown away. I mean, this is not just like incremental, but exponential growth. And so, welcome. It is great to have you. And first of all, tell us a little bit about PlaySight, about who you are and the background, because unlike a lot of companies that are coming to this space maybe with no experience whatsoever, brand new tech, you guys have got some game in your game, if you will.
Absolutely, guys, and appreciate you having me on today. And special shout out to the Armory. We love the Armory. So yes, like you said, I'm Matt Gibson with PlaySight. I've been with PlaySight for about 7 years, and it's been really exciting to see, where we started and where we are today. And that's kind of what I'm going to take everybody through that's listening in. So basically, PlaySight's been around, like you mentioned, over a decade. We started in racket sports, and I think that's one of our strengths in terms of you look around the market. There's lots of options, but I think our experience and our just longevity in the market is really important. And so, like I mentioned, started in racket sports. Thousands of smart court installations all over the world and in various countries. And today we actually serve every sport, with pickleball actually quickly having become our biggest sport and biggest market. So just last quarter, we actually signed over 500 new courts across the globe, and it's continuing to grow like wildfire. And besides the racket sports industry, I think it's really important to know that we have the credibility in all levels of sport. So if you look at, we have 25 NBA and WNBA organizations that use our technology, all the way down through the college and prep levels, and then certainly the club level, which is definitely the focus of the conversation today. So we've really honed in on our technology and scaled it and designed it to be pickleball specific and really all about the player experience when you enter a PlaySight Smart Club. It's really all about how easy it is, and in terms of the player to get access to their video and the overall user experience. So, PlaySight, for somebody who's never used or seen our technology, is really a fully automated video system for live streaming, instant replay, and coaching. And now, on the newer side of things, we have AI automated highlights and statistics, which are proprietary to PlaySight and all built into the user experience. So what happens is essentially the player walks into the club. There's usually a QR code sign on each court. They scan it with their own mobile device, and then basically it asks them what they're recording. So they'll say, I'm recording a match. And in that experience, they get the option to check on that they want automated highlights and statistics of their match. Something that we actually came out with last week is, because all of these highlights and statistics are actually being processed in the cloud in real time, when a player walks off the court now, they actually select what player they were from body and facial recognition, so that all four players can get their own individual highlight package and statistics. So it's not like one player sends it out to all four. They're all getting their own custom experience. And then, for the club, it's really all about, how can I generate value and revenue? How can I drive traffic into my club? There's a ton of different ways for them to leverage it, from sponsorships to different membership packages, coaching. We have integrations with groups like Duper Coach, and so there's really a lot of things that can be done with it. Also, instant replay, and at the end of the day, what I love about PlaySight, and I think is our real differentiator in the market, is that we're not a one size fits all solution. We understand that Dill Dinkers has a different model than Ace Pickleball Club than does Armory. And so we specifically serve the needs of each club, and they kind of tell us what they want, and then we kind of build it out together from there.
Matt, when you're talking to a club about customizing a solution, I've dealt with everybody run the gamut from people that are very technologically savvy that want the latest and the greatest. You look at, well, you mentioned, Dill Dinkers, for example, with over a dozen facilities around, and they've got a big tech stack and all of that. And then you get other operators, and maybe one guy's who's intimidated by,
Hmm.
whoa, or I don't want to deal with cameras. I'm just trying to get the rent paid and get my doors open. What does it look like, for any facility operator who's watching this to even begin that process of identifying what are my needs, and then what is the challenge for me? Because obviously I want to serve my customers, but at the same time, I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. And David and I found, and Scott on your team, when we were down in Scottsdale a couple of weeks ago, that range of knowledge and experience is so vast. I saw a lot of people who were like, well, that looks cool,
Hmm.
but how do you get them either over the bump, at least figuring out what actually works, and get them over that initial hump of that's just too much for me to even want to
Yeah, I mean, I
consider?
think in general, from a pricing standpoint, that's why we have different offerings. We have super high-end cameras that are like ESPN broadcast quality. We stream a lot of college tennis using those cameras on ESPN. And then we have like maybe a tier down in terms of the pricing of a another option as far as cameras go. And again, both are 1080 HD cameras, both are really high in quality. And honestly, if you're going into one club versus the other, you might not even notice much of the difference. But I think that, you don't need necessarily four cameras on your court. Maybe you start with one. So there's different price points that you can start at, and whether it's one court or all your courts, at the end of the day, it's really up to the facility operator to decide like what they're comfortable with to dip their toe into this, to this overall experience. And, I would also say too, and we see this with the franchises that we work with, like, you know, in general, it's not just PlaySight tech, it's other things, whether it's the top court surfaces or the top, paddles that you're offering at your pro shop or whatever the case may be. You know, at some point, you're almost putting yourself at a little bit of a disadvantage if you don't have some type of the best quality things in your club. And I think at the end of the day, like even those franchises I mentioned, same tech, but they're actually doing it very differently. And so there's really a lot of different ways, whether it's one court or all your courts, to kind of get started at different price points. So you have some places that have one membership that it's like included in their cost, and everything that you get at that club is included in the monthly membership. I think at that point it makes sense to put it on all courts, just so you have the a universal experience for the players. Otherwise, they might be fighting about what courts to play on. But then on the other side of things, if you have more of an open play experience where it's pay to play each time, it does make sense to almost position them as smart courts. And then there's a clear ability to separate. Hey, I'm going to pay an extra $3 a player to play on this court. So, and by the way, it's not just the PlaySight technology that makes that upcharge. Maybe it's the ability that it's a regulation sized championship court, or maybe all the other things that come with that experience. So again, it really comes down to the club's business model. And another thing is too, I mean, it's not just the QR code that's not just the only way to start a recording. We also do have integrations with other, booking providers. We're at the end of the day just trying to offer the best quality video and user experience. So, it's really up to the club to say, hey, we work with this, group or this group as our booking provider. And then it's on us to try and make that integration happen, and as we have with several providers so far. So hopefully that gives you a good idea.
Yeah, when you work with a facility, how do you take it? Everything you just talked about. In theory, all of this is great, and as you guys know, I mean, I was just in New York last week, played at 6 different facilities just in the New York
Hmm.
metro area, and there's cameras just about all of them. But it struck me that in a number of the cases, the club really wasn't doing it. The camera system is there. There's a screen, but there's no sort of
Hmm.
promoting it. How do you use it? How engagement with between the club and the customer. So it's sort of a it's cool. And then after one game, people don't want to push the button. They don't want to look at they just want to play. How do you work with a club to actually not only educate them about capability, but then really building customer experience, engagement, education, so that it becomes something people want to have, not just a, oh,
Right.
that's cool, nice
Yeah,
to have.
100%. So, at the end of the day, one of the most important things about our system is we see it as being the marketing engine for the club, right? At the end of the day, you're providing video for any match that's recorded. And most players don't want to, or club members or the club itself, they don't want to go through and watch your entire hour match. Maybe they want to see the condensed match with all the dead time cut out, or your best rallies or best winning points. So that's where kind of our AI comes in. So again, back to what I was saying earlier, if I'm on the court and I scan the QR code, while we do have an option during the match to hit a button, we actually don't have to do that, right? That's like a supplementary option where, like, maybe use it during a training session to cut a clip, but the AI is actually doing all the work. So you're not actually interrupting the flow of play, which I think is most important. And then, also when you come off the court, the clips are available to you instantaneously. And for the club, again, thinking about how am I as a club going to pay for the system? You have many clubs that say, like the Fort, for instance, is a great example. They basically have 43 courts, all equipped with PlaySight technology, and they've sold sponsorship on every court. So they have a specific sponsor,
Wow.
maybe it's Chick-fil-A or maybe it's Yola or Franklin, that their logo is going to be on every single highlight that's shared post-match to Instagram as a reel, or any tournament that they live stream when you're watching a specific court. So um, I think not only is there, like, obviously this engagement from a social media standpoint where you can share clips instantaneously and the ball automatically follows it inside of a Instagram reel, but it's actually advantageous for the club to, like, have some skin in the game as well and be like, hey, I sold sponsorship on court X. I need to make sure I'm getting this out there and making sure people are recording. So it's definitely a collaborative effort. We also provide, some marketing materials to, clubs to put on the court so that, on the net they can see that it says that you're playing on a PlaySight smart court. So it's not just completely on, the player to educate themselves. They're going to see it kind of around the facility if we're doing our job. We have different franchises and different facilities that work with different, paddle brands or providers. So we want them to have the flexibility to utilize that however they want. We even have clubs that have Celsius, courts, like Celsius, the energy drink, on there. So there's a lot of different opportunities and avenues that they can go down as far as sponsorship goes. But yeah, it's really 100% on them, and then essentially they keep 100% of the revenues, right? And it makes it very easy for them to cover the cost and then some of the system. So, really it's just about, again, how every dollar I can generate after that from tournaments and AI, capabilities is profit to the club. So they're kind of starting ahead.
How does the system, Matt, help a coach, for example, or help increase maybe coaching
Mhm.
revenue because now there's more sessions with a coach, and now we can go back and look at that. Just again, I guess engagement. Tell me a little bit more about the actual analytics. I was try looking at it a little bit
Mhm.
superficially, but not being on the court with PlaySight yet. How can the analytics help actually increase, coaching time spent with a student, or more students perhaps with a clinic, things like that, after the fact,
Mhm.
reviewing? I love the notion of the film room. I know that some facilities are starting to do the thing where a coach can actually now show on the big screen, just like you would do in football
Yeah,
halftime
yeah,
or whatever.
absolutely. We've got actually some great examples that I can share that, have clubs during a clinic sharing, on a projector or a smart TV courtside, the live feed where they can look up and see what they just did as a player. There's also a bunch of coaching tools in our PlaySight application where, with instant replay or after the fact, you can, like, draw on the video, switch angles, watch it frame by frame, or even record your voice over a clip. So if you wanted to send feedback to a player as a
Cool.
text message after, it makes it really user friendly and easy to do. So we have that component, which is part of the core of the system for all of our sports. And then we also have a great partnership with Duper Coach, where, they're kind of the grassroots, boots on the ground with, programming in the club with coaches. And they can actually provide almost like a player journey using our integrated video for the player to increase their, to establish their rating and increase it over time. So, and that's also an advantageous way for the club to generate revenue from that as well. I mean, I'll let them speak more on their behalf, but it's a really great partnership. The pricing is basically the model is based on number of courts, or actually, sorry, number of cameras that you do. So, basically, there's a one-time camera cost. You own the cameras, and again, like I mentioned, we have two different camera types from fixed cameras, and then we actually have a portable camera option that works really well for tournament operators that go from venue to venue. So you've got a lot of flexibility there, and then as far as the license goes, you either pay a monthly or an annual license based on the number of cameras that you have. So again, fully customizable. You can get in at different price points, whether it's monthly, annually. And the nice thing too about our system is we use high-end cameras that are kind of off the shelf. Honestly, we build the system and pre-program everything so it's plug and play. But because the cameras aren't like necessarily being built in our lab, we don't actually have to update the firmware of the cameras over time. Where our infrastructure plays a role is there's actually and this is kind of boring if I'm being honest, but there's a local computer on site that actually allows us to do remote software updates globally, right? So if you've had our system for 2 years and we come out with some awesome update like we did with these personalized highlights, you get it automatically, and we don't have to go in and go one by one, camera by camera. And I think to that point, that kind of also speaks to the longevity, the experience. Like every company, when you're early in the game, is going to take their lumps in terms of working through the kinks of a product. And I think that's really important that we've I'm not saying we're perfect, but we've been doing this for over 10 years, and whether it's cameras outdoors at IMG Academy on 70 courts or one court facility indoors, we kind of know, we have that experience in dealing with those situations. So you can do wired or wireless. So you have the flexibility. We always recommend hardwired because the fixed cameras we use in clubs are PoE, which means they get power from the Ethernet connection. So you always have that capability to not have to plug it directly into power, which is nice. And obviously, direct connection to anything is best. But if that's not an option or infrastructure is too expensive and you have power nearby, you can also run direct to power and then just use it off of point-to-point wireless. And then the portable system, again, that I mentioned for tournaments in different facility or operators, that's more wireless, cellular or Wi-Fi. So we don't do the installation, but the installation is very easy. When you're talking about building a brand new facility, you're already installing security cameras to begin with. So it's the exact same process and requirements. And what's nice about our support and kind of how we've done thousands of installations over the years, we have a whole support team that remotely supports you during the installation process. So we have our specs in terms of what we recommend for camera heights and distance off the court and that sort of thing. And it's really most important for that baseline camera that gives you the AI stats and highlights. But we're kind of with you every step of the way. And then once the cameras are online and we've kind of calibrated everything, we hand it off to the account manager from PlaySight that dedicated to work with that customer. And then they take them through training and are kind of their main point of contact moving forward.
What about, Matt, integration with an existing tech stack, or as a newer facility is coming on board and they're trying to figure out what does that whole system for them look like? Obviously, smaller facility may not even have a
Mm-hmm.
server per se. They're just local, and all of their their office products, and they're using whatever play by point, whatever system they're using. How do you integrate with existing stack and make it so that all of the tech plays
Sure.
nice together,
Sure.
if
So
you will?
in terms of just getting up and running, I mean, it's always going to be easier when you're building out the club to put in the infrastructure, whether you put in our cameras right away or not. Matter of fact, we had a franchise that it has us in most of their clubs, and there's clubs that pre-wired knowing that they were going to put technology in, even though they didn't know what it was going to be, and that was smart to do because then it's plug and play. And so good for us. That technology ends up being PlaySight. But as far as tech stack, like I mentioned, we try to be as flexible as we can. We're not married necessarily to working with one company. We want to stay in our lane and be just the best possible video product. We even do that, across other sports. If you look in the NBA, for instance, there are several high-end analytics providers that, I'm talking like, sensors on the body or around the court that give you real-time data on a player, how fast they're running, how hard they're working, all this stuff. And that's just not a lane that we are ever going to try to get into ourselves. Never mind, we have our hands full on developing PlaySight as it is. So, but we integrate with them, we plug into their systems, and then it ends up being 1 + 1 = 4 for like an amazing combination of products. And I see the same thing with pickleball, vendors. There's lots of great companies out there, whether it's tournament management softwares, booking providers, coaching platforms that, again, we want the customer to come to us and say, hey, I'd really like it if you could work with XYZ. And then it's kind of on us all to figure it out together. Now, lucky for us, we've got, I think, a good reputation in the market, and a lot of other companies out there, I think, believe the same thing, that it's good for the market to work together. If you're really strong in one area, and that's tournament software, like, how do we plug in, camera feeds, whether it's PlaySet or someone else, to enhance the overall experience. And so, I think we're doing a really good job of that. We have a lot of major partners in the market, and you guys know who they are. So excited to continue to build together. We just installed our first pickleball courts in India recently, actually like last week. So that was a nice milestone. We've got installations in most of the major markets. We get inbound leads every day from the Asian countries like Malaysia, Singapore, like that are just growing rapidly. And so I can tell you, just over the last 3 months, some of the countries we sold into include, it's actually every single continent, other than there's no courts in Antarctica yet. So, unfortunately, but, South Africa and the UK and, Australia and Germany and, Ghana. So it's like, it's been growing like crazy. And I think, also, pickleball globally is trying to catch up to the US, because I think there's been also an explosion of paddle as well. And so and I think it's good for the sport, because you're seeing a lot of, combined facilities even here in the US. Great example is we just did the installation at Matt's Pickle and Paddle, which is in Pittsburgh. And, it's nice because you can go into a facility, and that's what makes us really, really strong, is that we have the same solution for pickleball that we have for tennis, that we have for paddle. So if you see, the trend of this, where you have these combined rackets facilities, you can go in and have the same universal platform and experience if you're bouncing around playing the different sports. Obviously, the analytics and stuff are going to be sport specific, but it just makes it for a cleaner process. And most importantly, it's one app. You don't have to send it to a third party app to get broken down or anything like that. It's a really clean experience. So, but yeah, the growth has been insane in these other markets, and I think it's only going to get even crazier. So.
All right, Matt Gibson is vice president with PlaySight, and so many exciting things. We will not mention Jason Tatum and the Celtics, and we won't go down that road. But Matt, thank you so much. And how do people find out more? We'll obviously have all the relevant links off on our website and everything like that. But if people want to learn more, schedule a demo, what's the best way to get in touch
Yeah,
with
so you can reach out to sales@playsight.com. Or you can go to playsight.com, fill out a demo on our website, demo form on our website, and one of our team members, whether it's myself, Scott, or one of our other members, will be happy to connect with you, learn more about your club, and see if there might be a fit.
And if they come to Bossy,
right,
or, the Courtyard, Natick, and then Bossy in Boston, suburban Boston, coming up on June 20th for our regional meetup, they'll get to meet David. They'll get to meet you. They'll get to see PlaySight in action. And we're just so thrilled to be working with you. We look forward to long-term relationship here and seeing where all of this goes.
Looking forward to growing the sport together, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Matt.